Welcome back, everyone. 皆さん、お帰りなさい。今日は242日目です。This day 242. It. I think the second day after lesson day is the smoothest nowadays. So we have two things, right? What time is it? 4:49, 11 minutes. So we'll pick up these 23. 2 for tomorrow. Tomorrow is not the leap day. Right, yeah, tomorrow's not the leap day. So we'll grab the ones that we complete today. 1, 2, 3. And Saturday is gonna be the leap day. So Saturday is it appears that's lining up. So Saturday is going to be the burnout day, right? The day where we truck along on our burn items to see where those things are. It was pretty good. The first burn day was our 0-0 day, right? We can see it happens every 5th. Although this 5th will have more lessons. So it's every other 5th. Alright, let's get into it. Lots to do today. Todana. Okay. Let me check if everything's in order here. Okay, cool. Alright. Alright. Should be pretty smooth. Third days and fourth days are smooth. Often lesson days and the occasional all review, all like old, much old stuff. That's why we're gonna have burnout days every 10 days ish. Every 10th day is a day we go over our burnout items. Yep. We're gonna skip this for now. Bats game.
Akambo. Kawasaki. Shiro.
Yep. Ichi. Ichi. Kaku.
Taku. Yakuwari.
Okay. I was a little unsure.
Shiko.
Chika.
観光、
観光。観光。Huh. I'm gonna skip this. Later.
各地
Koichi. Or every land, I suppose. Or individual land, something like that. Hello there. I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing? How are you doing? Me, you too? Alright. Sounds good. Move this to the end here. Okay.
東部
Oh, boo.
対
対
応、
応。
準備、
準備。
理解する、
理解する。Logical. Okay.
演技
演技。That's a typo.
提出、
提出。提出。提出。Okay.
坊さん、
坊さん。
俳優、
俳優。
突然、
突然。
法律、
法律。
備える
備える。
保護する、
保護する。
割り算、
割り算。We're gonna move this to the end.
基準、
基準。Allocate red. Okay. What to do with shoe? Oh,
秀でる
he did it. No. Let's see. This is probably ono ono or ono ono.
お
Ono
のおの、
ono ono. Ono ono. Every is fine. Each and every. Oops.
更新
Oshin.
贅沢
贅沢.
反則
反則. Oh, wait.
姿勢、
She said. Okay. Oops.
裁判、
裁判. 裁判. Whoops, that's not how you spell trial. I wrote trail. Okay. Oh, no, this doesn't help with... Does it? The first one I skipped. The first one I was looking for the kunyomi. Mm.
Seissaku.
制作 Okay.
たくさん
Aksan. You look weird. Let's go.
福祉
She. Fukushi. She wa. Fuk. Fuk is a little bit nebulous in my head right now. Oh, I remember what it is. Yeah.
夕食
Yushoku. Oh,
乳首
Chikubi.
優しい
Yasashi.
大勢
Oze. Huh. Good. And the ceremony. What is that? Drunkard. Mouth, ground, dirt. Mm, Gotta move this to the end.
園芸
Enge.
砂漠
Aku.
1割
Ichiwari.
演ずる
Enzuru. Oh. Wait.
反応
No. Against response. Like oppose. Violate. Against response. I don't know. お母さんはどんな反応だったの？反応 it's a little different. So when you're having a response to something, a reaction, whoops. Oops.
弁護士
弁護士
法則
Osoku. What? Oh wait, just kidding. Something about NG, and instead of present, what? Wait. 嫌われる No, wait. 現れる
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 辞職
職辞職What in the about gonna move this to the end. A bit murky.
優秀
優秀
先
先
一応
一応一応 What? Okay. I just went over this, right? Okay. What does this mean? I'm gonna move this to the end.
表現
Roll again.
俳句
Haiku.
優勝
Yusho.
施設
Shisetsu. Carry out established. Oh, yeah. Okay.
現在
Genzai.
「諦める
Irameru.
過ぎる
Tsukiru. Hmm.
長崎
Nagasaki.
各自
Kakuji. Heck. Geoduct in order. Brown. Alright, we're moving to the end.
看護師
Goshi.
呼ぶ
Obu. Um.
給食
Yushoku. Uh. One's a bit. This one's a bit weird. What can I do with the saber? And has something to do with force as opposed to influence. but influences, of course.
Ikiyoi.
勢い。
割る、
え、
変更、
変更。
自宅、
自宅。Oops. Oh, right.
坊主。
坊主。床？
床。
床。Okay. I guess. Chong? Chong? Still okay for Chong, but Betto. Eh? Oops.
無職。
無職。Ah. Alright. Think about this. Price. Something about price of cheese. Value of cheese. Value of cheese. Right.
値。
値。
優先、
優先。優先。What? Oh. Oops.
紫色。
紫色。
現に、
現に。
罰、
罰。
医師。
医師。
職場、
職場。
棚。
棚。Oh.
誕生。
誕生。
勢力。
勢力。
現場、
現場。
牛乳、
牛乳。
上演、
上演。 So let's see. What are we solving with a kayak? Could use tie up. It could be alright, we're moving this to the end later.
教師
よし。Right. They wanted something else here. It's still not any of those, though. It's something else. Appearance. Despite typing all the other ones. Okay.
現実
Genjitsu.
価格
Akaku.
職業
Chokugyo. 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 Okay. Or okay.
かゆい
Kayu. Hondana.
本棚
Hondana. 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 Oops.
男優
Anyu.
割合
Wadiai. Wait. This one's a little weird, right? You divide the things and then you like put them together. I've been here before. Wadiai. Ratio.
Haru
I do. Oops.
住宅
Jutaku.
Murasaki
Murasaki.
出張
Chucho.
職員
Queen. All right, we skipped 9. Ooh, I was being very thrifty today. Trying to keep the momentum. So did I learn? It was what, policy? Boku or Saku. Saku plan. I don't actually think it changed.
作
I thought so. Alright, and then the meaning of this. Uncle. Uncle. This might, we might have to add something to Kanko. Right and light. Hello there, Brie. Doing pretty well today. How are you? I hope this day finds you in better company than yesterday. I watched one episode of Wednesday, the second half of Wednesday. I think the show's okay. It has its entertainments. I finished watching the second season of Fargo. What a wild ride. And then I read a bunch of like Silk Song coverage today. Seems like it's off to the races. Records are being broken. Uncle. What are you? You're feeling much better today? Haven't had your catastrophe yet? You finished watching Wednesday today? All you have to say is Enid, yeah. I can imagine. I can imagine. I think we're gonna wait on that. So now I have, oh, this is
副題
Budai and a subtitle. Okay. Oh.
富士
Koichi. Okay. And then I had this on 1, and then I lost it. Or you know, they just love causing her problems. It sounds like you're really into that. You know, it's kind of like what's her name? Pelt situation, Van Pelt situation. And then the Gorgon guy is basically what was his name again? Something Ski. Van Pelt's other. Oh yeah, I know it's Ajax. I mean, like what was Van Pelt's compliment in Mentalist. It eludes me right now. Rigsby, yes. Yeah, the Gorgon is Rigsby. Or maybe the other werewolf guy. But I think the Gorgon guy, Ajax, has more of a role than Mr. Werewolf Man. Wereboy. I don't remember you. Bruno. Yeah, he's kind of a tool. Just a bit of a tool. Okay. And pretty sure left is coup. We don't talk about Bruno. We certainly don't. Unless you're part of the family. And you happen to be that one rebellious girl. Then you talk about Bruno all the time. Huh. Maybe it's oh, alright, we're gonna come back to that. Oh, I remember what that thing is. It's Iki. What does Iki mean? Region? Yeah, Iki is region. Okay. So that's one down. I lost the right. The right one is an old one. Bit of a strange ass, but if you were left out of most conversations with people you... Bit of a strange ask. If you were left out of most conversations with the people you room with due to English being their second language, okay, and all of them sharing a different first language, what will you do as a resolution knowing the time you'll room together is 1 year? Context, you're in that situation, day 2. Intriguing. Because of a language barrier. If I were, like, I guess you're asking what would I do as a resolution? So that suggests that it's a problem, right? It's a problem. So if I had to consider that as a problem personally, especially a language barrier, the choice would be to either partake in establishing a activity that circumvents the language barrier and or bring them into an activity that circumvents the language barrier. to clarify, they all except one share the same first language. It feels quite alienating personally. It's like if I had to ascertain some of this, right? So I'm not entirely sure if it's just a language barrier. I think that's probably a cultural thing. Let's say these do happen in it doesn't have to be language barrier. It could be like disciplinary, like a science department situation. Could be one too, or office politics can be also one. I would say first we have two things, right? You can think internally or externally, I suppose. My first thought is internally, what do I have control over? Well, the alienation would be the control. So basically this is a negative, right? So oftentimes you could use acceptance if you're coping, right? If you want to cope, acceptance is a thing where you accept the idea that you are different. That can normalize. So this would be a coping strategy though. So how about something proactive? So internally we can do something proactive. My proactive nature, if you're thinking internally, so this is self first. I probably slowly bring them into my domain. And one you can do would be to proactively share and invite anyone, right? Any one of them into an activity that you do. So this is more like prioritizing self. So this can come off as a bit this is putting yourself first, so it's selfish. I'm saying selfish as a neutral thing. So you can bring them, if there's a language barrier, then you can bring them into an activity that you enjoy. And therefore it normalizes their investment, or it attempts to create that investment into something else that involves the two of you, but not necessarily the language itself. So an activity could be like playing a video game, right? And that video game deals with shared experiences. And shared experiences are often non-verbal. However, you can make that as an opportunity to language exchange. This offers the self the opportunity to observe your roommates, how they interact with the shared experience. So that alleviates language barrier. You can learn. This is an opportunity to learn, observe and learn. And alternatively, they would vice versa do the same thing. Right. Shared experiences transcend verbal cues. Externally would be to look outside yourself, right? Outside yourself. And it would be a combination of these. I'm compartmentalizing for the sake of clarity. So outside of yourself was external. So you end up trying to ask. You effectively try to invite yourself by partaking in their activity. Not necessarily the idea of trying to insert yourself in the sense of accommodating with language, but when they leave or they go and do something, you may ask, right, if you would partake in it. Oftentimes Of course, most of this approach also deals with the idea that I don't know what culturally is the group, the out group versus the in group. So a lot of times this is a very direct approach, and if you're talking to like a foreigner of a specific culture, inviting yourself can be subtextual. So I'm usually one that is from a face culture situation. So how do you invite yourself subtextually instead of going straight up to them and say, may I come? Right? May I accompany you? Oftentimes it's through the act of open generosity. So that comes from observations. So say like you notice that they always go get groceries or something on a Saturday, right? You may somewhat impose subtextually like, oh, I'm heading that way too, right? I'm also going grocery shopping on that day. So what happens is you're partaking in their activity, and that partaking in the activity creates also a shared experience. I think the thing that I'm focusing on at the moment, if I'm considered an out group versus an in group, is largely because this distance is dependent on how much this group has shared experiences versus, being in an out group, which you're weighing your individual. And to gain access to the in group typically involves some sort of increase in shared experiences. So externally, this would require open generosity. That's you volunteering and making yourself available in some way, both subtextually or directly, depending on which culture you are in. Typically, if it's like an Asian culture, which I've personally had some experience, subtextually is being available to do things. So like you make yourself subtextually available. Like when your friends are chatting, your presence is known subtextually. But if you're like in the United States, for instance, areas of the United States, asking and them saying no, like, oh, that's perfectly all right. But the idea is, how often do you ask? How often do you make your presence known? And then internally, you can take the selfish approach, the one that's internal, which you bring them in. So that's how I would probably, without a lot of details, this would be probably how I would break it down. The idea is you either choose to try to create some experiences with the in-group, or you bring the in-group into your sphere for shared experiences and exercise creativity, obviously. 5 China, Hong Kong, 1 South Korean, 1 UK, yourself. You have experience with Japanese though. As students in the UK, they all speak B1, C1 English or so, depending. Nobody had met until yesterday. This may be helpful. Interesting. If they are already, I mean, as in they all speak B1 and C1, I don't see how. So are you saying your language barrier is towards them? Like, you're mentioning language barrier a lot. So the idea is, I suppose, you have a feeling that your willingness, so this is the self, right? If you ascertain that you're willing to speak foreign to the in-group, because you're the out-group, right? So the in-group, which composes of 5 and you're 1, that would suggest that if they don't, they're alienating, they're like leaving you out that means that it's not reciprocated. So while they speak C1 and B1, clearly you're suggesting you're willing to do this going the other way. Are you like quote unquote B1 B1 and C1 in this foreign language? If you say Chinese, Hong Kong, maybe Mandarin. If you find this not to be taxing, right? I guess the question is, I would probably figure out or ask them, do they prefer, like, what? It's kind of hard to know, but if you're focusing on language barrier, I guess you would need to confirm if they don't like speaking English. Which is actually quite common in an in-group that is composed of Chinese people. So somehow you have to figure out if it is a language barrier thing. I think it could be a cultural thing. It's like a little bit higher than the language barrier. However, I do know that this is a thing. The alternative is it because you're speaking Chinese? So there's like many ways. You gotta find out if either they don't want to listen to you, speak their language, or they don't want to speak English. I don't think this is the case most of the time. But if we're focusing on the language thing, one has to test these things, right? My initial thought in this is there's a lack of shared experience. So because you have new roommates, there's obviously a culturally lack of shared experience. And my solution or my resolution tends to be to try to increase the shared experience. It can involve using the language if you want. I think when one increases the amount of shared experiences, it makes the whole language barrier thing become a second priority. So sharing time with them, or any of them, or any one of them, would probably be the way to go. The alternative, there is an alternative that you mentioned, which was the Korean. I think sometimes when you have multiple outgroups, you can form a new group and use that group to pivot into the larger group. So talking to Korean would be another thing, and I imagine this Korean is also B1, C1 English. My impressions that Koreans tend to be more open to English than Chinese, but the current dynamic is though 5 of them speaking Cantonese. Oh, okay. So Hong Kong, Cantonese the whole time, and fully excluding unless you ask them specifically a question. I speak no Cantonese, but they prefer it. I understand why, but the Korean feels a little uncomfortable with the dynamic, I guess. That is pretty much how I would imagine. And yes, I would say if they're Cantonese, right? They're Hong Kong speaking Cantonese. That is most definitely the case. And I think the thing that I refer to about shared experience is probably the most generalizably universal thing. The downside is I'm not sure if you're learning Cantonese or not. I guess this is assuming that English is the most comfortable thing. There are things to consider. So if B1 and C1 English is the unifying thing, right? It's the thing that's common for all the character, like all the people involved. The question is, if you're C2 plus, are you able to speak Canto B1 C1? And the reason why I say that is that's kind of like an adult C2 plus trying to speak to like a middle schooler. And I'm not talking about maturity and stuff. I'm talking about like habit formation. So the in I'm gonna project a little here. My parents are, they're technically, they spend a lot of time in Hong Kong, but they're Fujianese people. Most of the time when I this is me projecting my own feelings about this as opposed to using statistics. When I talk to them, right? I show them that I am accommodating. And the reason why I'm saying I'm projecting is because I think when it comes to face culture, which is that includes people from Hong Kong, you must humble yourself. Humbling yourself is the socially, culturally acceptable way of getting into a group. So whenever I speak to my parents, I don't speak in a manner that reflects my own competence. I demonstrate that I am being respectful to them in the sense of talking at this level. Now, the downside of this is this can be very difficult in terms of communication, because if you spend most of your time individualistically favoring a higher competence, which happens quite a lot in Western culture. I grew up in the United States. I'm American born, so most of the time, but this is very classic in terms of the Western culture, the American culture, where your goal is that you speak at the highest level that you can in order to try to embellish and express yourself that can be maybe outwardly generous. So if you speak English well, the inclination is that if you spend time with people who are learning English, they would acquire English, or the English would improve. But the other way to do it would be to lower your English, which can be very tough because in individualistic higher competence societies, it would feel potentially condescending. It would be seen as a little bit condescending, like, oh, but how do I use simple English? And then a lot of times it can be unnatural. I think I find this conversation happens a lot the other way around when people are learning Japanese or Mandarin in like language learning circles. They would find that it is unnatural and uncomfortable to talk at a lower level, which is also true for those Cantonese speakers. Probably they prefer to speak Cantonese because they belong to a monoculture. So most of the time they don't want to speak at a lower level. They would want to speak at the natural level, whatever they're naturally inclined to do. So in this case, when I'm projecting the face culture, I would say, well, what do they naturally speak? What is the English, their natural English, right? That can be tough for someone who doesn't learn English or teach English anymore. I can't really describe what this is like. For myself, I spent most of my life understanding fundamentals and teaching things. So I would probably change, like the way I'm speaking now, I would probably change the way I speak, English-wise. Say like, I would even probably, I would participate in learning Cantonese. I think one thing that is very humbling in a Asian society is the person who's outside, the foreigner, often humbles themselves in order to learn something. And I guess my approach, my solution would be, rather than thinking about what's important to me, I would probably figure out where their natural English is, wherever it is. Natural English, like fluency, right? The whole idea of fluency. I think fluency, you have to find where their fluency is. And fluency to me means wherever, whatever level they don't feel strained. So like for me, I would say grocery now, right? You kind of like have to cater, like I go store, right? And what happened with that is it would also give you the opportunity to pick up Cantonese. Now, one thing that can be useful is you make it a language exchange instead. And when they tell you Cantonese, then it shows that you have an interest in their language. In response, then they would have a reason to use English. So that would be what I would approach in a way. So I would attempt to learn Cantonese. 我不可以听到like it's very tough for me for Cantonese. To like produce the Cantonese, like, but I can hear it. So if you hear it and you can associate with English, there might often be a exchange. But I think sometimes making it about the language as opposed to about the experience, it can be a little bit tough, because then this becomes like an extra study thing. So most of the time, what is that feeling that I always get? Being present. I think being present is something that I don't necessarily think it's culturally intuitive for an individualistic person. So I'm from born and raised from the United States, and people tend to think pragmatically on the individualistic level. So for example, it is them. Like, for example, it is them that is excluding me. But the question is, are you trying to fit in or stand out? I think that's a question that obviously we're strangers, so we can not answer these questions. I'm not your best friend or your family member. But generally speaking, I would say someone like an American like myself would probably tend to favor standing out than fitting in at a later stage in their life. Fitting in is the idea of, if they go somewhere, you're going to go there out of interest. So right now, how does this fit into everything? the one thing is you're being excluded because you are different. Now the question is, how do you make it less different than the in-group? I don't think this is true for the United States or Great Britain, like UK. Oftentimes, the United States and Great Britain for sure is more like being, like being a salad situation. You have multiple groups and everyone is like a 1-1-1, but when you add them, you get a group. So oftentimes it is, I think culturally, it's more likely that this is UK and American friendly. Where when you have a group, but you're focused on its individuality. And I think that's, without making this a competition, oftentimes you might be thinking, and I think the same way, this is easier. Because if you bring someone in, right? If you bring someone in, your outgroup, all the behavior and the cultural norms are good. Like they're made, it's almost as they're made for that. And I think the UK and the United States have social norms that accommodate not alienating individuals. And they tend to invite those individuals into a group because the more the merrier situation. I think when it comes to at least my Chinese background, with my family, I've never been to China, so this is a grain of salt. It's often communal, and communal would be, how can you find ways to show that you understand without in their presence is like one of the, I would say this is true for any the people who are like integrating into Chinese and Japanese culture a lot of times, especially when they're learning and then they want to move into it. You have to, one of the ways to fit in is not to inject yourself into the group, but demonstrate that you understand the things. So like observing, for myself, most of my life, I observed my parents. Yes, it's true that parents do teach us a lot of things, but in a Asian household, at least in my opinion, again, I'm projecting, in an Asian household, my parents do things, and I observe and learn them, and then I do them in the presence of my parents. This is subtextual learning. And usually shared experiences are subtextual in Asian culture, at least in my opinion. In Western culture, it's usually explicit. There's a lot of explicit guidance and feedback, like direct feedback. So often you ask questions, they clarify the things. This is very uncomfortable, I would say, for the most part. Like I wouldn't ask for example, I would go up to my parents and I'm like, why are you angry? Or you can demonstrate that you know they're angry by demonstrating you are a guilty party. So you assume responsibility and take care of it, right? You tend to prefer to fit in, but that becomes tricky here. Sure, you don't have significant issues with adjusting cultural norms, such as ones mentioned due to personal life experience and background. The hardest part is having the opportunity to talk and be accepted. I think to me, what you just said indicates that you think, like I'm gonna be a little direct with you here. You think you don't have a problem adjusting to cultural norms, but it doesn't sound like it. If you don't have trouble adjusting to cultural norms in this situation, then it would be very accepting and non-alienating. if you're adjusting to a cultural norm, you're dealing with it. You're not living it. So, in my opinion, that's probably the one big difference between why you're excluded. You don't live the culture yet. And obviously you just started, so it's not like there's plenty of time. You said it's just day 2, so it's the beginning of a journey. So if we're talking about like resolutions, like approaches, what is it, what do some people call this, cultural growing pains? So if you truly believe, which obviously it's too early to tell, that you have no troubles adjusting to cultural norms, continue adjusting to it. I think due to the nature of being in a Asian environment, like like a communal conformist environment, becoming a conformist is something that if you don't find alienating, then I think the stuff will speak for itself, right? Like when I leave my household, my parents' household, I spend more time behaving differently than how I behave at home. I like with my parents, I do not behave the same way that I behave outside. Now, on the one hand, from an individualistic point of view, it might sound like, oh, you're like behaving politically appropriately or something and not your entire self. But that's kind of a hard thing to convey because, in my opinion, a face culture, especially living a long time in a face culture, this is the thing. It's faces. These are the masks you wear. So for myself, I don't necessarily adjust in the same. I use the word adjust because I agree, because my American exposure would be an adjustment. In the feeling of my parents, this is normal. It's normal to behave differently in different situations. So it's not quite an adjustment, but it's part of life. It's a life culture. So for myself, when I'm streaming, like at this very moment, when I'm streaming, I don't sound like this when I'm off stream. Like, I sound a certain way in public. I share this openly all the time. My friends, like the people I've met online, for example, the last 7 years, when we're in like a voice chat, I don't sound like this. This is not me. This is not my streaming, not streaming personality. And I talk about this quite a bit because that's what distinctively kind of makes me, quote unquote, Asian. This is what I inherited from my parents. When they're writing a story, you're white, Asian, and part of Eastern and Western friend groups. You're open to changing and just confused on what I can really do in this whole situation. Sorry if this is getting a little too detailed. No. Perfectly all right. This is what we're here for, right? Learning language is part of that, in my opinion. And I like talking about this. Honestly, this is pretty much my platform to talk about. So you're East meets West as well. Interesting. Are you Chinese or Cantonese? I'm not half and half. My parents are first generation, so I am first generation American, but second generation Chinese. So I think this, if you are already doing this and your situation is still hard, I would look elsewhere, probably. So say you're like, let's run down the qualities, right? Malaysian British, part of the friend groups with primary Japanese Malay people when it comes to Eastern ones. Ah, Japanese Malay. Interesting. I don't know what the relationship is, but here's something to consider when it comes to conformist societies, at least in my opinion. And my parents speak about this openly a lot. I live in the United States, right? I currently still reside in the United States, and most of the culture around foreigners is that everyone is a foreigner. So, but when I think about how my parents project things, I'm not sure what Malay relationships with China is. And then usually I think it's better with Hong Kong. Because Hong Kong is it has a different history, right? However, I don't know if there's friction between this. So if there is actual friction, the idea is, well, are your roommates permanent? Right? Are your roommates permanent? If you're doing 1 year, you gotta stick it out. But the idea is that then plan for next year or plan the next year, right? I'm not sure what your situation is. This is becoming very detailed, right? So 1 year roommates, you plan next year. 1 year, okay. So then you plan next year. So what can you do? I mean, your roommates aren't the only people, right? Roommates aren't the only people. So there might be an impasse. I don't know. They might just have an animosity. I think Malay, Hong Kong, and China are... I would say there's open friction between them. It's kind of like whenever my parents and I have a discussion about Chinese and Japanese. So that could be a thing. That could be something to be considering. I don't know if that will make you feel any better, right? But understanding if there is a friction can help with coping. Then knowing that, I would probably say, well, what's outside of your roommates? And that would be the way to go about it. The reason why I say this is because calling people out, in my opinion, because they're not inclusive is, I think that's antagonistic to, at least in my opinion, Chinese customs in a lot of ways. This is also true for Japanese. In Japan, probably not Japanese outside of Japan, but in Japan, because we have to remember that those who moved away from Japan and from China and whatnot, they're embracing a different cultural lifestyle. So to me, I would say then you find opportunities outside of the roommates, and then those non-roommate people could be a bridge to your roommates. And to do that, right, you spend less time, you spend more time outside and being present in someone else's thing. I think the thing that I would do most often when it comes to those situations is do more in public space. So oftentimes this is adapted for like office politics. It's not quite the best analogy because of roommate situation, but office politics. Like, if you notice something about someone else, that is your way in. I think that's universal. I think that's definitely universal. So the way in is to observe something and then you use it, address it, right? So oftentimes, like for example, here's an example of open generosity. I noticed that someone always gets coffee in the morning. So the question is, how can I use that observation? You can, if you notice that no one else notice this or joins them, you can do it with them. And I'm using coffee because it could be anything really. So the question is, do they go on, maybe they go on walks in the morning. I would go with them. Not necessarily invite per se. Like, you don't have to necessarily ask. You can go at the same time they're going. So this is what I would refer to as like subtextual participation. The reason then is that if they ask like, oh, how was your morning? Or you ask how was their morning? You can subtextually have the same experience that you can share immediately. And that's what I spend most of my time. If I were, for example, if I were saying I want to get to know my roommates. Now, before I started all of this, I did mention that I don't feel alienated when I'm around, when I'm alone, despite being around people. But if I had to, if my objective is to be friends or be accommodating to the roommates, I would probably make my presence known by participating in the activity that they do without them having to invite me to do anything. So I'm not self-motivated. They're not motivated. They're not my motivation, but my own motivation to fit in. You get on with your roommates, you had a good night, one, then they started speaking Cantonese last night, one, and it continued from there. Then you leave. Yeah, and then you start over again. That, like, if that's an example, it's a journey, right? So it's a journey. If you're on day one and you manage to get along, then that's progress. I think when you say they switched to Cantonese and then the rest of the night happens, this is saying you personally want a deeper connection or a deeper understanding, but that's what you get. You start there, right? Then day two offers another opportunity and it might still be the same length and it ends. But the idea is you're creating shared experiences. So I don't see a problem with that, honestly. That sounds like great news. Day three then could be longer. Generally speaking, if I had to project again, since we're talking about Hong Kong, this is normal. Hitting it off, right? Hitting it off and being friendly at first and continuously like hitting it more like a hitting it off, hit the ground running. I think that's a very Western thing. Much like this discussion we're having right now, this is just the beginning. So I usually expect that if I was channeling my quote-unquote Chinese values, I would expect that every 3 days, every week, we would be talking, discussing, sharing more experiences. And then it could be like, it would take a whole year before you might become friends. And that, I think I'm not sure how Malay, how deep are you with your Malay culture, but I would say Chinese and Japanese would probably agree with the substantial portrayal of this. Pleasantries, one night, one day stuff are very, very superficial. Like, it's not go hard in the beginning. I think other influencers might have covered some of this in a different way, where it's often consistent repetition versus highs and lows. And oftentimes I would say a lot like an Americanized approach would be you go big and see what happens. Usually the misconception that a Westerner would have, I'm not saying you're a Westerner, but for myself, like my American perspective, would be to think that the person isn't guarded. It is very common for Asian groups to be guarded. So the very common guarded thing is that you work on that guarded thing. You meet some others on campus, but surprisingly have better experiences with your roommates. Oh, that's interesting. So your campus is even more guarded than your roommates. Well, then that's reassuring. I mean, that suggests that then your roommates are actually your friends and the other people aren't. So your social norm, if you say you're having better contact with your roommates, right, than outside, then you're doing well. Whatever you're doing is working really well. Usually, at least in my opinion, roommates and outside are very close. For those who who really feel like the roommates are alienating. If the roommates are excluding you, like deliberately trying to exclude you, and then you find out that outside they treat you like strangers. But in this case, you're saying they're not, according to that. You say that you have better experience with your roommates than outside, so they're not actually treating you like strangers, which is excellent. So then I would anticipate that over time, whatever you're doing now, you are more than just a stranger, right? If that's what you're saying, like, according to what you're saying. You do understand where I come from, though? They tend to always have one person minimum with him at all times, you notice? Yes, I would agree with you. I think that is one of the consequences of my parents being inseparable, despite really arguing all the time. There's usually one other person, at least one other person. It's incredibly normal. I'm kind of like pretty westernized when it comes to my like living situation, so I'm a loner most of the time, and not the same as being a loner. Like I don't experience loneliness when I'm alone that much, so that could be a Western thing. But when it comes to my parents, yeah, they're often never alone. They tend to always... Okay, I do believe it went well and has potential. The main worry is the continuation of the late day 1 pattern and day 2 where we didn't interact at all until by the end. That's honestly, if you're telling me that your day 1 pattern is different from the day 2 pattern, but at the same time it's the same, to me that's cherry picking. So what I mean by this is, you told me you hit it off in the beginning, and then you said day 2 it was at the end. So they are different. But since you cherry picked the pattern of being isolated, that loses its context. Based on your description here, you said that day 1 and day 2 are different, and then you're worried that it's the same, but I don't see it as being the same. When you interact at the end of the day versus at the beginning of the day are two very different things. I would say that's even crazier progress. So now you can figure out what makes it so that you can talk at the end of the day versus what you can talk about at the beginning of the thing. And when you combine them, then you probably have something to work with at the end and the beginning. You can compare and contrast, because what were they doing in the beginning of day 2 versus what were they doing at the end of day 1. I think interactions also involve observations, right? So this could be a personality difference between you and me, but sometimes you talk, sometimes you watch, right? And this sounds like you have two different situations that you're able to talk and watch. And the pattern you're isolating is when you're excluded. So the difference here is there's a huge difference. You're excluded at different times of the day. So that sounds auspicious to me. Sounds like you did something different on day 2 from day 1. Do believe, okay. Alright, and then you will add they're already good friends to an extent. That's fine. Yeah, this is why you worry about being left behind in a sense. You're already behind. I don't think it's about catching up. You think it's not deliberate exclusion, just comfort in finding natural balance? Yes, that's fair enough, right? So, hear me out. Many of the things you're talking about that are negative right now are self-imposed. So this is a little bit of a victim blame, but bear with me here. It's self-imposed. When you're saying they're good friends already, to some extent, that means they're good friends and you're not. Or you could also argue they're better friends and you're not. Now, you could view it as a negative thing and say you want to catch up, right? That is like, that's entitlement. That's a perspective from entitlement. You believe that friends should be equal. And like, if to feel less alienated, you want to be treated as equal in the friend group. In my opinion, there's a little bit difference. You could, like myself, offer a different perspective. If you have a pair of good friends, what can you do to expand their friend circle? So instead of competing for attention, it's the privilege. It's a privilege of having any additional attention. So it doesn't matter how good they are at friends. Any time that they spent with you is additional. It's the privilege of having it. So you can't feel bad, or one would feel less bad when they know that any additional interaction with these good friends are time spent with you. It's not the lack of experience. It's the addition of experience. You've gotten an extra hour with these good friends. Not, oh, I should have had more time with these friends. or like I expect it to be included all the time because that's what friends do. So this would be a threshold approach. Basically, there's an ideal amount of interaction that you care about. And these friends are not meeting that, or these potential friends are not meeting that. Instead of being privileged and grateful, right, for any additional experience. Now, I'm not saying you're not doing any of that. It's probably a combination of the thing that lead to that overall concern, right? Concern. Another harsh reality is that if they are already friends, you are behind. No buts, no buts and coconuts about it. You are behind. And since you don't speak Cantonese, you will always be behind. Now the question is, does that mean you can't be friends? I feel like this enters like relationship territory. I'll make this a little bit more lighthearted. I have quite a few online friends, right? Online friends. But these online friends have IRL friends. So this is kind of like an in-group and out-group thing. Their IRL friends came before me. So whenever, we like talk about, oh, let's chat in VChat or something, or not VChat. Well, yeah, VChat. Like voice. Eventually they would have to go because they have IRL friends, right? And you can make an argument like, oh, this is pretty much an accepted situation. They have friends before you. I'm like, sweet. Thanks for your time. Hope we get to do it again sometime. Right? Hope we can do it again. But if we don't, I hope you have a wonderful time with your friends. Because this is time you otherwise would not have. Now, hear me out. These online friends, a lot of these online friends have IRL friends. But over time, in my opinion, I'll share a little bit, they actually ended up spending more time with me. Now, it's not because I'm a better person or like have more things to give them or something. What I ended up doing is I ended up making all those small amount of time important to both me and them. So no, I did not just vibe. I didn't just vibe like their IRL friends, right? We only have we only hang out possibly 1 hour a week. So we work on it. I work on that 1 hour. How do I prepare for that 1 hour? Well, I prepare by trying to think of, and it goes back to the very first thing that I said. My resolution is, how do I share my activities, right? And then how do I get in on their activity? So whenever that 1 hour starts, right? Whenever that 1 hour starts, or 30 minutes or 15 minutes, I start the ground running. I mean, I have like 23 hours the rest of the day to develop it. So in that 1 hour, we never stopped talking. It's great that you know that it's mutual. Like it's like part of the cultural growing pains. I don't think you guys aren't going to be friends. I think it sounds like you're gonna become wonderful friends. They already from day 1 and day 2, they already don't treat you like a stranger. So that's amazing, in my opinion. That's progress in like a Chinese way. You're sharing a room. They don't like scold you or like get angry at you. When they become direct, in my opinion, in that culture, if they're directly addressing a problem instead of using subtextual understanding that they only want to speak to you for an hour because it's really taxing. Maybe the English is very taxing. That's phenomenal. That is subtextually telling you that they're doing more than any stranger would. So that's fantastic. I think those are very positive indicators, if I understand the culture well enough, right? So whatever you're doing is great to me. So, and it takes time in that case. The final question, what would you suggest for the coming days? I'm okay with not being first. You want everyone in the living space to be comfortable, but also would want to be friends with them. Food. I think a universal appeal, and I would say a nod for definitely a nod for a Chinese culture, especially roommates. I use food. I use universals. So universals would be like cleaning, organizing, like maintaining the household, sharing food, and sharing an appreciation pattern. So potlucks, amazing. Like if I had to 火锅, like dabenu, how do they say it in Cantonese? Hot pot is the way to go. Like ask them something. Like I think communal eating is universal. Like I don't think there's a culture out there that would say, oh yeah, we just hate eating and hate doing things around food. It's it's the thing. So I would probably pick universal activities. I think a lot of times going grocery shopping, walking to get supplies, cleaning is a really big one. I think cleaning, growing up in a multicultural, like growing up with multicultural Americans, my very first best friends, unconditionally, we have incredibly high hygiene routines, and I think it's built into the cultural aspect of always taking care of the place that you live, because the house or whatever the domicile that you live in is incredibly sacred. And cleaning is often involved in cooking as well and eating, so all of that kind of just blends together. So food, in my opinion. You prefer directness. You would prefer they are more direct, but yes, they haven't been angry or upset towards you, nor be unfriendly. That sounds amazing. And you know what's even crazier, if you can confirm it? They don't talk about you. Now this sounds like oxymoronic, but they don't talk about you in a negative sense, not around you. But you wouldn't be able to confirm that, obviously. But the idea is, if they're not already like subtextually giving you, here's an anecdote that I would use. My parents, I think you could use like other Asian cultures, but I'll use my parents. When my parents is upset with me, this is like going against Americans, like Americanized perspective. I've used directness before. In the workplace, I'm usually direct because I grew up I'm born and raised in the United States. But if my parents are upset with me, right? My parents are upset with me. They would go out of their way to look at a situation and explain it. Explain their thoughts when the opportunity presents itself. They wouldn't tell me the situation. You have to read between the lines. So I think I think there was like a Japanese Western, like a Western person immigrated to Japanese who did thing about the subtextual nature of Japan. Like for example, if you say screwed up in the workplace, someone could anonymously say have a book of regulations placed at your desk, open to like the part that they disagree with. For example, you can probably find an example like this elsewhere, and you will never know who that person is. You will never know why they're angry with you. You will never confirm their identity. It's just, that's the subtextual nature. So ultimately, when it comes to blending in with especially other, I don't want to generalize too much, but other Asians, I could feel that already here, despite not being in a culture that is completely Asian in that way. But I can only imagine what it's like in Japan and like China and Hong Kong and whatnot, where if you know for sure you're subtextually observant and you have no evidence of this type of subtextual passive aggressiveness, then that sounds amazing. That means positive, very positive. And I'm gonna put passive aggressiveness in quotation because passive aggressive is often considered negative in, at least in my opinion, in the American culture. This is the normal. This is normal. Passive aggressive approaches is the normalized way of communication when it comes to confrontations. And in a way, it's kind of oxymoronic because it's non-confrontation. Yeah. To summarize, you believe you're not doing something wrong and you have made progress? Yes. You'll just take more time and mutual experiences? Absolutely. And trying to create memories where we share experience would help. Yeah. And that's on point, right? And then those shared experiences, often you're looking for what type of shared experiences. Often you can rely on universals. And universals are sleep, eat, and since you're students, you're probably students, right? Studies, and entertainment. You can probably also throw in weather, but weather is like really low. This is like low-hanging fruit, but these are universals. So you have to abandon, for example, a lot of times, because you can even factor in your language barrier. The reason why I would rely on universals is because sleep, eat, study for students, if you're students, weather, entertainment, these are emotional things. So you're trying to circumnavigate. Maybe you'll want to learn Cantonese because of these things, and they will maybe want to improve their English or use English because of these things. These are universal. These are things that go beyond language barriers. So if you share a meal together, if you don't exchange it any word whatsoever, you can make noises. Like, oh, this is, that's it. That's it. You shared that experience. In fact, oftentimes, I've met a couple like Japanese Americans and Korean Americans in my life, and if we're not talking about anything, if we're really enjoying a meal, nothing is said. It's just shared. So most things are not said, but they are shared. If you want to be like corely connected with something, my best friends, my brothers from another mother, we used to do this thing where we basically just sit in the same room and we say nothing to each other. Like, I'll paint a picture here. So I'm gonna use like some characteristics. So there's a TV here, right? And one of the friends would be here. By the way, they happen to be 3 brothers. They happen to be 3 identical. They're identical triplets. These are my. So one person, and then there will be in, another chair here, 2 people, right? And then one person will be playing something, right? Controller in hand, and watching the TV, right? I'm drawing an old-fashioned TV just to. And then in the background, there'll be another table, right? And the person will be sitting and they'll be doing something with like miniatures and whatnot. And then I'll be back here on my desk. And I'll be doing work here. But we would go through the entire day without sharing a single word. And you can get to this point, but the thing about talking and conversing deals with exchange, right? However, the exchange often, in my opinion, in a westernized culture, the talking and exchange comes before this, which is how I got to know these people. In my opinion, if we're gonna go gravitate towards an Eastern situation, the without a single word thing, occupying the same space, breathing the same air, doing similar things, kind of come before exchanging and conversing things. So it's not exclusively one or the other, but oftentimes there's a stronger weight. So since you're already roommates, one of the things is if someone's eating, right? If someone's eating, sit in the same room and eat something. Possibly even say, hey, do you want to try this out? It's like, hey, do you want to try this out? Right? And that to me is more like subtextual communication. When they look at you, do you smile? Like, we're not talking about no words or anything. We're talking about nonverbal communication now. So, like, I typically wave when it depends on how I greet. Like, I say hello to my more Americanized friends, but I would wave to my like more Easternized friends, right? So these things are really great to do, or try out and see what resonates with your group. You would be open to learning a little Cantonese, but you don't want to be bothersome or burdened by asking to give me help in return for nothing at the current friendship state. Yeah, I would not expect that either. Oh, they do smile and wave sometimes when we pass each other. You do the same the other way around. Yeah, that sounds really normal. I don't think you have anything to worry about, Mika. That's more than I would expect. Uh, my that's the normative. When someone doesn't like do that, like have some sort of subtle admiring your existence, it's still normal, but I feel like it's more like stranger danger, or like just stranger. So like my parents, you know, what is the usual culture shock that happens in the reverse order? It's the idea of exchanging pleasantries. Not really. Not too much pleasantries. I say hi to people who I take a gamble. In the United States, it can be a gamble, but you know, typically you say hi, acknowledge people, but then those things become what is it? Decorum, right? The natural decorum, in my opinion, if I had to project my Chinese value, is to say nothing. And when you make eye contact, there's business to be had. Like if in my opinion, if my parents is making eye contact with me, there's business to be done. Like we business. We're not here to make friends. There's business. So it can be a very long time before there's like, I don't know, a fist bump or occupying the same space. Like even occupying the same space is a big step in my opinion. So if my parents are eating and they don't mind someone else sitting in and sharing that, you're already making progress. I think the best way I can suggest this when it comes to strangers and in group is you go to a dim sum place, right? You go to a packed dim sum place, which is very Hong Kong, by the way. You know, there's a bunch of seats, right? There's a bunch of seats, and it's so packed that what happens is one person would be eating here, and then they would share half the table, right? They would share half the table. Then another strange group comes in, and they would eat like that. The table will be split in half, or even thirds if you add two more in the background. And the reason they can do that is they're all Chinese. So the thing I was describing about choosing a meal, sharing the same space, and making your existence known that you do the same thing in the same spot is more like, in my opinion, a way to get a foreigner to be conforming to something. So you're not drawing attention to yourself. You're making yourself exist, but in a manner that is whole. You don't want to stick out. You want to be doing the same thing everyone else is doing. You're not there to say, "Oh, sorry, I'm a foreigner." When you're no longer a foreigner, you no longer see yourself as different. You can still see yourself as different on the inside, but when you're like doing things in a face culture, you behave like everyone else. So and that's difficult to do, obviously. Like, I agree with you, when there's a language barrier. So one of the things that often is mandatory or nearly mandatory when it comes to going to like Japan and China is that eventually you pick up the language. In the United States, if you're coming to the United States, I'm a product of multiculturalism. So when someone comes in and they say, "Oh, I hate my accent," like, I love your accent. You can just speak that way for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter to me. I actually think it's the most endearing part about your life. It makes you an individual. But that's not like, in my opinion, that's not Chinese or Japanese. Chinese or Japanese is the moment you become no different from someone else other than your appearance. Like, you can't obviously change your appearance and stuff, but if that's all they notice that's drawing attention to you, that's the it. Like, that's the moment. Like, you hear all the Nihongo jouzu desu, right? The joke about when a Japanese person notices someone's Japanese and they say, "Oh, your Japanese is good." It's like, well, yes, because they notice that it's not normal Japanese. Chinese is very similar. And you might, in fact, if you're worried about your language barrier, don't say anything. If you don't say anything, and you can do everything like normal, then they will never know you have a language barrier. And when you become friends, you may be able to reveal those things. So like, oh, I'm sorry, we've been here for a while, you know, like, you've occupied the same space, like, may I speak to you in English? Is that okay? Well, okay, maybe for like 30 minutes. It's like, that's fine. So that to me is how I feel when it comes to when my family has family friends and they're Cantonese, but a lot of them are from Hong Kong, so they speak Cantonese all the time. My parents go between Mandarin and Cantonese. Family members, extended like family of family, we use Mandarin, but at the household we speak Fujianese. And Fujianese is like something that's incredibly ingrained, closed group. So my parents would immediately act the way they do in the house if it's another Fujianese person. But if they're speaking Mandarin, it would be the polite, this type of situation. And if it's Cantonese or Taiwanese, for example, it would be a lot more guarded, very guarded. Right? And then English is non-existent. So my parents understand to say yes, no, smile, and that situation. So I think that that's what illustrates this point. Might not be the most comfortable. Like, honestly, I've grown up so accustomed to being Americanized. I'm all up in people's business. Like, Mika, you and I are having this conversation on YouTube. That is, in my opinion, as quintessentially American. Like, again, I don't live in the UK, so I'm not quite sure if I could say that, but a lot of times this is the most westernized interaction. And it's nice that I enjoy this a lot more because I spend most of my time in this. My parents, hear me out. My father, and you can probably find this example in other places too, but my father could be suffering and having the hardest time in his life, and he wouldn't share it even with his spouse. Right? His spouse, my mother, would have to observe and know that it is happening. That is the social norm of things. So if they're not blatantly angry with you, then you're good to go. Unfortunately, it could leave a very dissatisfying. It's like a very dissatisfying feeling, I would say. I'm half dissatisfied most of the time, and I think the lurker, like you just mentioned the whole lurker thing. I think that's what makes Japanese culture and Chinese culture and like Asian culture in general very appealing right now, because it's the social norm to be an observer and a watcher than a person who keeps thinking that they're a burden to someone else. Now, I don't actually believe my parents would ever say you're a burden for wanting to learn a language. But they would say, I don't have time for it because I might become a burden to you. So I do this. I find myself doing this far more often. When someone says, "Can you help me with something?" My first inclination would be like, you might not have time for me to help you. Not the other way around. Because oftentimes when they have to commit to something, they have to be certain that the other person is as committal as they are. That's where, in my opinion, comes with that guarded behavior. Like, I have a couple friends that would say, "Hey, I really love this video game. Would you care to play with me?" It's like, okay, can I ask you how much time and how much commitment do you have for this? Because I'm either gonna say no, I can't commit to it more than you can, likely, or you cannot commit to it more than I can. As opposed to whether they feel it out or vibe it out, right? Like in the beginning. So that's kind of one of those things. If you occupy the same space and you're doing the same task, each people leave and go about their business, but they know their presence is existing. So when you're doing that, it gives you the opportunity for two people to understand, well, we spend most of our time together in this situation, so we might as well do it together now. And that's kind of how I feel about like if you're watching like Japanese entertainment or Cantonese entertainment, if you look for that in their in their media, right, in their social media or their books, their movies, it's coincidence, happenstance brings quote unquote Asian people together. Control usually doesn't. And it's really dissatisfying overall and disappointing if you're somewhat westernized, because you want to feel like you have control and proactive nature in the relationship. But if your happenstance do not meet those occasions, forcing the issue is like kind of the stigma of interloping. You become an interloper. And then it feeds back on you and say, "Oh man, I'm a burden," right? "I'm a burden now." And it's all sorts of recipe for like negative, self-inflicted negative feelings. Interloping is not interloping if happenstance presents itself. So oftentimes, like for example, why are my parents married? Well, they're from the same place. And just so happens their family knew each other over time because of happenstance. And a lot of like Japanese and Chinese content, when you're looking at it, they talk about the situation. They're often like, it's one of those things that make anime very distinct from like Western culture. Like if we compare MCU, for example, to like a shonen fight series, it is the situations that motivates the characters, not the characters creating the situations. So oftentimes, it's not a universal rule, obviously, but the tendency is that you witness characters deal with situations, and those dealing with those situations create friends. Be it like a common villain or something like that, like One Piece, for example. It's their situations that made them friends. In MCU, the main MC wants friends, so they go and make friends. And that's kind of the idea of the difference between communal and individualistic behavior. I make myself known that I'm a good student. I get good grades. I go to school every single day. So therefore, if I am around like other good students, those good students should become friends expectedly. I grew up in the Americanized education system, so I didn't grow up in like a bilingual, like New York, like a concentrated thing. So that didn't work. That only made you lonely isolated and not noticeable. And then when you are noticed for all your differences, so you get picked on, because that's how the American culture, like the multi-generational American. I grew up in a white suburbia, so those are the things that make you stick out for all the wrong reasons, and then all the things you believe are social norms are not social norms, so you get isolated for that. In Chinese culture, if you're getting just as good grades as everyone else, then you will likely become friends because you behave like everyone else and there's a togetherness. But there's also this slight invisibility, right? One of the telltale signs is if you're not being treated as an interloper, they are also less likely to exclude you. If you appear very different, it's uncomfortable. So it might seem like exclusion, but at the same time, it's not intentionally malicious. Largely, it's unnatural, which is what you read. I think the situation's read very clearly, Mika. Like, I think the way you're approaching it and reading it, that sounds perfectly fine. If you want to be a little bit, slightly more proactive, as opposed to making it a naturalistic thing, sharing the same space is already in the wheelhouse. And then sharing the same activities because you want to. You behave like it. Like, you always clean your dishes. Well, you always clean your dishes when they always clean their dishes. That creates togetherness. If you're choosing who does the dishes because you're delegating, that's a personal matter. So, like, if you keep your room clean, for example, right, to the same level, we're not talking about like who has the cleanest room. It's not a competition. If you keep your room clean and everyone else keeps their room clean and you guys all clean at the same time, that's absolutely togetherness. That's the thing that, so whenever my parents do this all the time. The moment my father decides I'm going to pick up the vacuum, right? My mother is like, okay, well, we might as well just clean the whole house because we're gonna do it together, right? So if one's gonna go to the grocery store, the other is gonna go to the grocery store too. My Western side would say instead, if I'm going to the grocery store, I will ask other people, hey, I know you guys don't want to go to the grocery store. I can pick up stuff for you. So that's one way to get closer to people who are like in an individualistic society, in my opinion. Like, if I'm going somewhere and I'm going to do it anyways, I can do the thing for them. And that would be like a favor, right? Or like it would be good graces. It would be generosity. In the way of communal things is 5 people go to the grocery store, right? At noon every single day. Make that 6. You also go to the grocery store at the same time. Not that they're inviting you or that they need to invite you or you're going together. You want to go at the same time they want to go. And that becomes a communal thing. So then you end up sharing those experiences. And that is, in my opinion, one of the contrasts. I do this way more often, which is if I'm going to do something, it doesn't matter who is going to do it with me. I'll ask and I just do it. That's individualistic. A communal, yeah, you go where the tide goes. Like you're a fairly negative and isolated person typically. Okay, a second perspective has helped. Oh, okay, well, I think there's room for a third, fourth, fifth perspective, right? For myself, I'm basically projecting most of the things that I'm saying. A grain of salt, but it is wonderful to talk about it And these things, I'm gonna tell you now, like, if I had to generalize, you're not gonna have this type of conversation with, like, an Asian person per se until much, much later. Like, maybe never, but it becomes way, way subtler later. I think this is more of still a westernized thing where like strangers can come up to each other and express their negativity and positivity and isolation. I think that's more of a Western wave. And if you ask, like, if you take like interviews, right, from multicultural people, especially those who are native to like China or Japan. The reason why I'm using these examples is because I consume this type of material most of the time, and it's usually Chinese and Japanese because those are my two interests. I'm not as well versed in Malaysia. In Malaysian culture, I do have a Malaysian American or friend who acts very similar, right? So this type of discussion is alien. Even at the most deepest levels, like even my parents' relationship, it is very difficult to even say most of these things. It's shameful, right? Like, we have to understand these cultural differences. It is shameful to admit one's shortcomings, especially publicly. So when you find something negative, that is inappropriate for the public space. So we have to keep in mind that it's not whether it's justified, morally right, ethically, or whatnot. There are different cultural standards. So being able to admit that one is isolated and then having conversations with someone else publicly or anywhere can be very cathartic. Even if that is universally true, that humans get comfort and whatnot despite like talking to other people about like feelings and whatnot, that doesn't mean a culture is going to find it appropriate. So I think in China and in Japan, this is incredibly inappropriate. And that's why that's part of the situation where I often talk about the appropriateness. And I really like to emphasize the appreciation or the candor. This type of conversation, I don't think, to this day, I'm 38 years old, by the way, Mika, and I don't think I've had this type of conversation with my parents yet. I don't tell them that I can't do something, or I don't want to do something, or they know, like, you might be saying, well, how will they know you're angry and stuff? It's like, they will know. That's why you don't talk about it. They're supposed to know. And then you might be arguing from a Western standpoint. Well, what if they don't? It's the pros and cons. The pros and cons of subtextual culture. If they don't know, then they have failed. So when you think of like like a kid struggling with emotional problems, right? Your parents are responsible. They are expected to subtextually know that their kids are having a problem. If they don't, they have failed as a parent. That's largely why they don't. So it's one of those, like, it's allowed to do this because the culture supports it. The parent, and then, obviously then you have the westernized pros and cons. It's like, if your parents don't ask you if you have a problem, then they may never know. And that's a social norm. So the kids are expected to tell the parents, no, I hate this. Can we do something else? And then the other parent, the parents are like, no, we disagree with you. So in the other side, they have their own safeguards, and then on the right side they do. Okay. Anyways, despite being raised here, you feel like you struggle more with typical British friendships? Interesting. And actively avoid people that come off as loud and very unique, individual based somehow? Huh. Then you're in the right place, Mika. I think the rest of you will likely catch up. I think it's like the whole package, right? You're finding your place, and having your whole package will be interesting to know. If like, while you don't have loud and very unique individual friends, the stuff that you're looking for, inclusion and stuff, loud, very unique individual based friends will tend to collect together without needing to share interests. They would like to be involved in other people's interests. Like they're very strongly interloping. But on the other hand, if you don't like loud and very unique friends, then most of the interactions are also inherently nuanced and subtextual. So it's kind of like unfortunately, you can't have the cake and eat it a lot of times, but I'm sure you'll find your balance somewhere. I would love to talk about future things in this. We would never do this sort of conversation if we weren't online behind anonymity. It's fair enough. And I don't have anonymity. So, but for me, what I'm doing is I'm using my professional courtesy, right? My discreetness of my professional courtesy, but that's really mirrored in Chinese values than anything else. You have to head off about about 25 minutes to sleep, pretty late. Yeah, no worries, Mika. It was a really wonderful discussion. And obviously, please, be discreet, right? You have, oh, that was today. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, like, definitely be discreet, right? We're obviously on the internet and whatnot, but I love talking about communication and behavior. In fact, I love the idea of being able to bring people together, in the sense of getting them on the same wavelength or finding people who have similar wavelengths, and not in the sense of wavelengths in, oh, you guys both like Roblox. That's circumstantial. Those are circumstantial patterns. I think mindsets and behavioral patterns, you know, for lack of a better word, feelings and motivations go a long way to bridging even language barriers. I think in itself it's part of the language. I feel modern society, at least on currently, like internet society, heavily weighs on trying to extrapolate written language and spoken language. Right, written and spoken language as the primary medium for creating relationships. And that is it's part of it, right? Relationships. It happens to be happenstance that I think the irony here a lot of times is that when we're talking about, for lack of a better generalization, Chinese and Japanese, for example, it usually weighs on happenstance more so than possibly even written language. It's the behavior and environment that is a double standard. I would say, well, yeah, it would be considered double standard from that point of view. And growing up, it's nice to be able to do both. So instead of like one last like TLDR, instead of making it a competition, right, of like what you do best, or what you prefer, in my opinion, like, since I have to make these decisions all the time, like for myself anyways, as a personal share, I focus on doing my best as opposed to on what is best. So, or which. It's not about which. It's about many or all, or not necessarily all. Yeah, like inclusion, right? Inclusion. So you can dislike and like a certain situation, much like you can like and dislike a different situation. The idea is those things are related to each other. And being able to understand that they're related to each other allows one to be maybe content a lot of times. Like loud individualism means that my friend, if I have a loud individualistic friend, it means that if someone hurts me, like if someone like attacks my character, I sure as heck going to tell you the loud individualistic friend is probably going to make their presence known far more than someone who is communal and subtextual. They would avoid conflict, right? Their directness is part of their individualistic loudness. The tendency for someone who's loud and individualistic to be desirable when you need someone to defend you is palpable. But it also comes with other things. Their loud individualistic things come with being loud and individualistic. So they will conflict with you in opinions. They will argue with you. If you have a soft subtextual, like let's just say Asian friend, they would not only tend to always agree with you, they wouldn't ever share their disagreements with you. And you are responsible in knowing when you're being disagreeable to them. If they don't, they will drift apart and you wouldn't even know that you did something wrong. Because when two people drift apart, they accept it as a happenstance. I conditionally disagree with this person. So it is very normal for two people to drift apart without ever confronting each other. And those are like, that's like one of the more classical ones that Western people who like view anime, for example, for the first time, where it paints like a true life story or something. Yeah, people drift apart and they never ever voice their disagreements with each other. I feel those things happen in absolutely one of the most intimate settings, and even then, I don't think they even happen in intimate settings. I don't talk back to my parents. Ever. If it does happen, it's like once every 30 years. Maybe on average. Regardless of whatever disagreements I have, you have to move a mountain for me to say something disagreeable to my parents. And then you have to like move maybe a smaller pile of rocks when it comes to like the public display of disagreement. And that can be annoying to individualistic people, right? I'll share one last criticism, just for like posterity in here. Western being agreeable all the time is like being politically correct, which can come off as disingenuous and pretending. This is my personal, I'm not referring to it in a specific case, but I spend most of my life dealing with this. And when I mean dealing with this, I mean like understanding how to use this, respond to it, and like wield it, right? Because if I have this experience most often, I would understand the nature of it and try to participate in it. So when I recognize this, I will share my opinion. So until you actually told me your relative like UK status and whatnot, I would not be as direct because my default tends to be more Easternized. And where Eastern defaults, norms align with Western things is during professionalism. So this is where I use the analogy where I say most of the time I spend exercising Western professionalism. because they align with Eastern norms and like behavioral norms when interacting with someone. And what is that? Well, I never tell you that you're wrong. That's the first thing that I would not do right away. If I tell you that you're wrong, I absolutely 100% know that everyone in the room, the entire situation, all agree with me before I say that. But because of like being a streamer and is the main thing and being in Discord on the internet, you can never say it. It's like you can't do it online. So inherently, you're going to sound like a professional or a politician in a Western eye, because I typically say, well, that may be true. This could be true. That's a fair assessment. It sounds very reasonable. I think we're both in agreement in certain points, and then we might differ and slightly divisive in others. That's why I sound like this. Because to me, it's normal to do this. It's not normal, in my opinion, for most people on the internet, because I think most people on the internet, at least the Americanized internet, is Western. And when they're being colloquial, as in vibing, right? When you're vibing and being yourself, quote unquote, your true self, you're being candid. Right? Candid. And I don't do that. And I tell people all the time, this is my cultural norm. I do this culturally normal. The people who are closest to my life may have some understanding of the subtext of the things. Like sometimes I don't even know I'm miserable. Like that's like when I was younger. When I was younger, I don't know that I'm miserable because I deal with it. I have to deal with it. Now, the thing is, my Western friends will say, well, you don't have to be that way because you can choose to not have to be that way. That's one of those proactive individual things. Like, do you get to choose the job that you're good at? For example, that comes up a bit. No. If you ask me when I was younger, you don't get to choose to pursue the thing you're good at. You get the thing that you need. And yes, need would be like, oh, well, that's subjective. It's like, yes, it is. But to a Western and Eastern, that need is different. The need is you need a job. It has to be high paying. It should alleviate all your financial securities. So whether you like the job or not, you're going to learn to like it. You're going to learn to be good at it. If the thing that you're good at is the thing you don't like, learn to like it. Right? It's not an individual thing. It's a communal thing. If you're good at a job, you do the job because you commit to supporting maybe your family, your immediate family, your community. That's what makes you normal. People don't constantly choose to be different. Like, you're not trying to express yourself, you're serving a pragmatic purpose. And that's kind of the thing that I don't share too often. I actually sound like whatever we sound like today. Very agreeable. I think closer friends will come to know that I can still try to be direct. And that's because I'm also American. So I can be direct when I need to be. You feel like you have a more Western relationship with your parents and Eastern with friends as expected, unexpected as that is? That sounds about normal to me. Sorry. So I have more Western friends than I have Eastern relationship with my parents. My parents are traditionalists, so there isn't anything. There is like, I've lived for 38 years of my life, and they've been in the United States for like 5 more years than my 38 years life. So they spent more than 40 years in the United States as American citizens, and in the household, there is less than 10% of the time that has any reflection of Western relationships. Like, for example, I barely even like, we don't express feelings to each other. Like that's one of the bigger things. But my friends, most of them are Western relationships, Westernized relationships. So you have to hang out all the time. Now, I do have very close friends that by sheer coincidence we are very similar in that in certain regards. They're kind of like Easternized, but by coincidence, by happenstance. But most of the people, they measure friendship based on like things that value a lot of times. Like explicit talking is a measure. So when you're saying if you had a lot of Eastern friends or like Easternized things, explicit talking that is initiated for relationships, it's not really Eastern, in my opinion. It leans towards Western. So it's the act of being together, but not necessarily in the way of explicit talking. So, and the things that the qualities, right? The qualities that are often emphasized are very different, in my opinion. Eastern would be describing the nature of that person, more so than the like the interest, like the complex interest of things. So I know that my friends tend to be very polite when they disagree with things, like inherently. The other thing is the alternative would be like, my friends tell it as it is. I think those qualities are different. When someone says, oh yeah, my friends speak their mind, say my friends don't. and hear me out. Just because they don't speak their mind doesn't mean I don't know. The thing is, when you're subtextually aligned, you don't have to speak it. So, like, for example, in an awkward situation, 3 of my friends, we would look at the same situation, and I'm like, yep, I'm sure they're thinking about that too. But we're not going to need to confirm this or not. We'll just know that it exists. However, I like talking. I mean, like, I'm a fan of explicit talking. I mean, I like learning language and whatnot. So I would love to talk about it. That's provided that it's at the open invitation of other people. So I talk about this now because it's not a burden. I enjoy doing this. Talking about like how language learning can impact someone's way of thinking, or how the language is being used emphasizes certain things. Like, for example, in Japanese is a great example. So is Chinese. The whole idea that there's a lean on context behaves or is reflexive. You could it's like a chicken or the egg problem here, but you could argue that it's reflexive of the culture. Well, when you say something is bad, in English, I would say how bad is it? How bad is it? Is it like catastrophe bad, or are we talking about not a big deal bad, or you can handle it bad? And then in Chinese and Japanese, as you're learning, you're probably gonna say, well, it depends on the context. Like, yeah. So you gotta be there. Or you have to have a shared experience in order to do that. Now, that still exists, obviously, in the English language and other English speaking. That I'm not saying context specific speaking does not exist in English. In fact, is actually happening far more, right? It's happening far more online, like bro and bruh, but it still is a bit more lean. Yeah. Sleepy time? All right, good night. Keep working hard at language, and yeah, and hopefully you too, if you're interested. Sent that 40 in case timestamps aren't present. I hope this conversation was somewhat interesting to you. It is. It's generally very interesting to me. I wouldn't be so direct about it. That's what I'm here for, at least. My intention is to have these discussions wherever opportunity presents itself. Learning another language is for this purpose as well. Being able to speak, hopefully one day, being able to speak in different languages with the same aptitude would be great. Or lacking that aptitude, and encouraging others to learn a language and then become more however they want to fit in or stick out. It's great. So thanks for the conversation, Mika. I enjoy, right? I do remember you, by the way, when you say you have been a long time lurker here and ask something long like this every few months. I do remember. These things don't happen very often. What I mean is these conversations happen when they happen, but it doesn't happen too often. All right. Enjoy your sleep. Good luck. I would love to hear what it's gonna be like in another 3 months or so. Like how it goes. You're more than welcome to stop on by. Thanks again for your time. All right. I've been staring at this for a while. Let's move on to the next thing. Oh, we got this one. It was Chiki.
地域
What is that, like land, territory, region? It's probably like region. Okay. Wait, is that the other? Oh, that is the other one. Oh, that helps. Whoops. I'm pretty sure that's Ryo, right? Ryo. This is also like territory. How do I get ground? Oh, Ryodo.
領土
You'll set a reminder in November to update you. Nice. That's a deal, Mika. I look forward to November, Mika. For then, if there's anything that is worth putting in some more sentiment, I think whatever it's worth, I think you're gonna have a lot to say in November. And I think knowing that someone else might want to hear from you, I think that's really a great source of motivation. So I look forward to hearing how it goes. You can totally try Cantonese on me. I'm terrible. I don't even know how to read Cantonese. I know it uses the same characters, but more on that in the future. Like, or you can tell me what your friends say all the time. Okay. Now we have solve. What was solve? How does kayak fit into this? Pretty sure that's kai, right? So something about kayaking. What about cookies? Did I write anything about cookies? Kayaking. Cookies and kayaking. We're down to 4. What were the 4? Oh. I didn't even take a guess at this meeting, huh? Something about within expectations. I'm looking at this sentence. What is that? Anofu de do. A panel? Retto. What is there? Whatever that is. And plan. Plan and light. It's just right plan. Oh, this is Koichi.
Koichi.
And then this is the region. So we solved that problem. Iki was lost. And then Ryo and Iki was lost momentarily. And now we're stuck on Kai stuff. Kai related stuff. Right. Two of them deals with Kai, and then man. All right. I guess these are the things that I'm gonna be overlapping today. So let's. These are the things I'm gonna be practicing. So what do we have? We have plan, right? That's wait. Is that plan? No, rights. Right. This is rights. No, that's not rights. Oh no, wait. Wait. It's not rights. Oh, okay. Because rights is tree, right? I think rights is... Yes. Again is rights. That's kan. So rules? Rules, law. Why am I'm being such a pep right now. View. It's view. Right. Okay. So this is view plus light. That's sightseeing. Oh my gosh. I screwed up. I screwed up pretty bad there. Sightseeing. So how do I fail on view? Yeah, this is sightseeing. So what does that mean for this? Okay. So what was that one? That was kanko. So now we have, this is definitely, I guess they would use tie, right? Like tied up. but they could also use solve. Okay, so we have solve plus I'm pretty sure that's answer. But I lost answer in the grand scheme of things. Answer is gone. I wanted to say like da or fuku, maybe. Wait. Taito. No, Kaito. It's probably Kaito. Oh, it's because all the other... I still don't know what the right... I think it's Kaito. And this has to be solved. This is like solving something. Let me write this. So... Pretty sure it's Kaito. Kaito. Solving. I don't really know what the right thing is. It's answer. Yeah, it's answer. But I don't know why it's Tokyo. Oh, it's because if you get the right answer, you go to Kota? Wait, they introduced Kota as the... Oh, and if you answer properly, you get to go to Tokyo. What's the thing? Ugh. So they went with Kunyomi first. Despite... Oh no, Kotaya... yeah, Kotaya. And then the other is To. Kind of evenly split. Solving. Let's write something for this. Solving the... Just say the solution to the... to being cold in Tokyo is the solution to being hot in Tokyo is to dress light and avoid wearing koto or kota. Wearing a kota. So then I know that it's not kota, but it's wait. It's not kota, but it's to. What else can I do? The solution being hot in the solution to the hot weather in Tokyo is to dress light and avoid wearing a kota. Or try kayaking. What is this? Kaito ne? Yes. Okay. Alright. So now... And then... How do I... Toku.
Toku.
To solve. Your toe? I've got what I wrote for solving things. To keep your toes warm and dry, one can solve that problem with waterproof soku. Toku. Alright. Okay, so on the one hand, I'm talking about being dry while kayaking. Wait, no. Yes, I forgot the kayaking part. Warm and dry. Oh, man. Wow, kayaking. One can solve that problem with waterproof soku. Maybe not warm and dry, but cool and dry. To make it consistent with the other one. And I guess I could throw in... Oh no, I don't have to throw in that. Okay, alright. So Toku... Ooh, write this down. So solve plus... I could even put cookie, but solve, right? Solve is just to solve, so it's ultimate. And then Toku. I could put in cookies. Oh, I could just coup it. Oh, actually that works. Actually. Ah, okay. Thanks, WaniKani. Keep your toes cool and dry while kayaking. One can solve that problem with waterproof soku. Nice. Alright. And then we have 23 left, right? Alright. Alright. Sorry, I have to blow my nose. Alright. Okie dokie. Oh, there it is.
領域
Yoiki. Them together. And then now we have
観念
Annen. What was this? View and thought? Just a thought? Or maybe like opinion? It's fine. This is figure, but something else. Right. Exactly. It was like this one's elaborate. Something about the sheep's figure. Sheep's figure. Suga, Sugata.
姿
Oh, that one's gonna be a problem each time.
置く
Good. Whoops. What? Oh. I think I might have misspelled it.
観客
Kankyaku. Okay. Uh,
脱字
Tsuji.
外観
Icon. Hmm. Outside view? uh, foreign? Outside view? What the heck? Oh no, outside view, like overseas? What? Oh wait, is it like unexpected? What? What? Hmm. Alright, we're skipping. What? Oh my gosh. Please.
副業
I kept forgetting the G. Yo.
応じる
Onjiru. Whoops. Not response, responded. Respond.
降車
Bullshit. Um,
示す
Shimeshu. Whoops.
主観
Shikan. I guess that's like subjective opinion.
物価
Fuka. Ne? Or value. Could be? No, could be. Could be? Oh, wait.
指示
Shiji. What in the world? This like instructions? Or, oh wow, I misspelled instructions. Actually, I'm kind of... I thought it was D, but I don't remember why it's D. I just know it's D. Hmm. Ugh. I knew it as she. Oh, okay. That's what I got away with that until this part. So you are unfurrowing. Jesus. Interesting. Well, we'll see how long that lasts before I need to think about it in a different way. Maybe we'll just sit, you know? Oops.
罰金
Bakin.
Kachi.
Touch. Heck.
す
S
袖
Sode. I believe Kandu works, right? No! Oh, no, wait. Yes, wait. Wait, oh, no. Ah!
見る
Miru. Kandu.
Koji.
Oji. Heck. かこ
過去
kako. Okay. 罰する。
罰する
View from the outside. この what? このアパートメント I didn't ever seen it written out like that. No. 外観が好きです. The outside, the appearance, the surface, the outer appearance. Do you want to write outer appearance or something? Oh my gosh, you want an outer appearance? Dude. Dude, context. Please, even English can be contextual. Alright. We still got the same three, so. Alright, expression, silhouette, surface, the outside skin. Like, what do you want from me? And they just want it outward. They want outside or external, connected with appearance, not external or appearance or outside. Fair enough. All right. Let's get on with it. Good day to have a digression. All right. I'm so pepped from that talk. All right. Leather, vines, restaurant, road, demon, and morning. You know what's the most exciting part about that discussion? I want to know what the person ultimately finds out, because I want to know. I want to update my perspectives, right? Considering I don't have opportunities like that. Could make opportunities like that, I suppose. All right, let's get on. Ayu, Murasaki. Shu, He, Kaku, Sai, Ki, Go, Wari, Wa, Shoku, Saki, En, Ritsu, Shi, Kan, Jun, Soku, I, Do, Kan, Cho, Yu, Haku, Saku, Totsu, Ze, Hana, Shi, Gen, Nyu, Yo, Shiro, Hai, Shu. Okay. Alright. So got stuck on Kan, man. That's kind of disappointing. And Kan ne? Kan ko Koko. Nope. Wait. I don't remember how the bottom of ko works. Oh no. Wait, is it just... I think it might just be this. It looks so barren. I feel like I'm missing a stroke. Is it light? I think it's light. Oh no, that is definitely it. I just need to space it out more. There's a lot of empty space. I know. First world problems. That moment that you spend so much time writing large, like, complicated characters, and then you realize, oh, there are characters that have fewer strokes. Okay. Right, Kanko, which is sightseeing. I think we're okay here. I kind of just got stuck a little bit and kept thinking this was rights, but it's view. And then we have solve and answer. We have the kota, right? Kota now mixed with ko. Oh no, to. Right. Hot weather. Leave the coat behind. Ko. Not ko. To. And kota. And then solve was fine. Kai. What is not fine is I don't quite remember what's on the left side of it. There's a cow and foreman for sure. Second, oh, it's a horn. Oh, no. It's not a cow and foreman. It's a blade. So, or a sword. And then we have Kota and or Ko. Or Ku, which then this is Toku. So I Ko or solving. That was not an issue. I just lost to for a moment. And then this would be Toku to solve. And these two will forever be linked together. Hopefully forever. Alright. So that's a wrap for WaniKani today. Our WaniKani session today. If you're gonna watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu, right? Always feel free. Feel free to follow along, pick up WaniKani, try it out for yourself, right? And you're always welcome to come on by, have some candid conversation or not so candid conversation. We could even posture, do some posturing and be politically correct to each other. That's kind of fun as well. Like trying to discuss is kind of a fun like English practice to speak professionally and politically correct while trying to exchange informations on sensitive topics. That's kind of fun too. Like most of those things are very entertaining and interesting. And it's a way into people, however superficial it might seem to them. I don't think I often empathize with people when they say there are certain things that are important and not important when they speak. I feel, in my opinion, with enough observational skills, in my opinion, this is my personal belief, that there's a lot of tells to someone's behavior, and you got to start somewhere. So if someone says they only type one word every single day or every once in a while, then that becomes a characterization of them. Know that I do attempt to commit that to memory or factor that into the way we interact. Right. And you're more than welcome to change that. But ultimately, I think if you're one that cannot occupy the same space and use nonverbal communication, right? And you forcibly believe that it is some sort of language barrier or some form of communication, then yes, that would be the only medium you would interact with. So understanding that nature, then you would say that if you only type certain things, then that is all you become. To both yourself, possibly, and to other people. Like, you could keep saying, well, I'm a really friendly kind of person. And meanwhile, the only medium you use is text, and all you type is one word, right? Then that becomes you. You are your rate limiting step in that situation. However, the situation that we were talking about is something that this person can leverage, something that is steeped in far more than simply explicit language, right? I think nonverbal communication and existence when it comes to human interaction is there are quite a lot of universal things that one can leverage. Emotions would be a very strong point. However, online, right, you're only as communicative or limited by your form of expression online. So in that case, to those who keep typing those one words over and over again, know that that is also the characterization of how you introduce yourself and try to present yourself in existence, whether you like it or not. So hopefully those individuals find that their life is satisfactory because they behave a certain way, not they don't like their life because they didn't have any part in it, right? If you do not work on your communication skills and you use like your verbal communication skills, you know, your written and whatever other forms of media, if you don't practice them, then in my opinion, and then you're upset about it, then in my opinion, that is not only the fault of maybe things happenstance outside view, that is also your fault, right? I think that would be very reasonable. One is not free of blame if you go around saying people don't understand you when you make no attempt to do so in the first place. I think that's one of the underlying principles of trying to resolve something, right? Understanding what is it that make it a negative feeling or a positive feeling, weigh those, understand the nature of those, then with that clarity presents solutions and problems, or even catharsis in acceptance, right? If you're okay with saying hi and that's it, day in and day out, then I really vigorously hope that when you ask yourself, you are also okay with everyone defining you as that person who doesn't say anything, right? I think there's a lot of ownership online, and giving away agency due to complacency is something that I'm not the greatest proponent of. I do not encourage people to become almost pedantically reliant on hoping things work out. And it's not the same as happenstance. Happenstance is when you're doing something, and because of the act of doing something, things happen to you. Inaction is not happenstance in the same way. It's still a component of happenstance, but I'm not talking about that part. So going around thinking that you will become a part of someone's life, or someone thinks you're valuable by normalizing the most lowest effort form of communication, I hope that it meets your, it meets everyone's satisfaction. For myself, I prefer to spend every day and every waking hour investing in that skill set, because personally not being powerless and or being ignorant is not the greatest recipe for feeling comfortable in one's own skin and being able to operate and be very less questionable about one's skill set. I mean, I'm already questioning my own skill set day in and day out, but it helps manage it, right? Manage that anxiety, nervousness, possibly lack of company. And that's worth talking about and sharing from day to day. That's also one of the perks of learning another language, right? At least in my opinion. Honestly, that's probably at the top of the that's probably one of the top 5 reasons, in my opinion, to learn a language. No, the fluency is like, I'm gonna draw a little fire here, but in all honesty, fluency is like bottom of the stack. When you have the encouragement of wanting to increase your perspective and your communication abilities and stuff, that fluency comes as a byproduct, in my opinion. So that type of thing, for all due respect, focusing on thinking that your communication skills will improve because you focus on fluency, or like harshness, or knowing things, I don't think those will ever elevate, in my opinion, to the top of the list of creating emotional social connections, right? At least in my opinion. So that's a pretty hot one for the day. And you're more than welcome to come on by and share a lot of your hot potatoes, right? I think these discussions are a slight strong should be a common occurrence for those who might be emotionally dissonant with the outcome of their actions. I think that's would be the most polite and agreeable way to say it. If you are unhappy and you are unaware that your actions and your behavior are contributing to the thing you're unhappy about, I think having such discussions with anyone willing to listen and exchange is a wonderful place to have the opportunity to find a solution, like a working direction to a lifelong pursuit of addressing that. So when you think you have a lot of friends and all you do is say what's up each day, then you might not have a lot of friends. And then if you go to someone and say, I don't understand why my friends never invite me to talk or hang out, it's like, well, what do you say to your friends? It's like, well, I say a lot of things. Okay, give me an example. Well, I say hello each day. Meanwhile, they will think that they say more, but they don't really. It takes a close person to see that. And I think sometimes when people tell me that they do certain things, I like to think that there's more to the story. Because I earnestly think a lot of people are capable of, not a lot of people, I think most people are capable of rationally connecting the consequences of their behavioral pattern to what they dislike and like about their current lifestyle. And today was a great opportunity to talk about multiculturalism. And I hope to hear great things. I kind of wouldn't mind learning Cantonese alongside someone who's like possibly obligatorily needing to learn Cantonese. More than welcome. All right, I'm gonna, get up, stretch around, and then I'll be back for my Hanzu Hero session. For those who are only interested in WaniKani, 皆さんまたね。Right? 見てくれてありがとう. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching. I'll be right back. Thank you.